Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's so good of you to join me here today. So today I want to take the time to discuss a very important topic. And what might that topic be? Well, it's chemistry. That's right, we're going back to our high school chemistry classes to discuss a very important discipline and science. Now, what we have in front of us here today is the periodic table of elements. And on this table, as you can see, we have a very important section highlighted. Now, this is what I would also like to call rare earth metal elements, or people call that. I don't really call that. I didn't come up with that terminology, but these are the rare earth elements. And not only are they a rare earth, but they're also the economic elements of the future. Now, these elements, as we can see on these entries here, are responsible for all kinds of technologies, from aerospace components to LEDs, which are used in modern lighting. So they're used for lasers, medical equipment, nuclear reactors, sonars, you name it. These here elements are responsible for it. Now, why are we discussing these elements? Well, it's because these elements are also going to be very important in the future. Now, what I have in front of me here is an article that says, Beyond China, which countries hold the key to future rare earth supplies? Now, in a previous discussion on this channel, we've had a discussion about how AI might be responsible for the next oil boom. And to summarize that video, the reason AI is going to be responsible for the next oil boom in the United States is because AI is a critical technology that is being heavily developed within the United States. And the United States, because it was one of the first countries to really industrialize and modernize oil refining and gas extraction industries, has an immense infrastructure all around the country and has invested heavily into infrastructure all around the world in the oil and natural gas extraction industry. So when America needs to surge production and surge capacity and build a network of generation electricity production to supply power to AI servers and data centers, guess what? It can do so because it already has the infrastructure. But that doesn't explain what the infrastructure might look like in 30, 40, 50 years, when we could more realistically expect for oil and natural gas to be closer to depletion and the costs for those resources to be much higher than they are today. So what does that mean? Well, it means that whoever is invested into these technologies now or has invested into these technologies in the past stands to gain a whole lot. And this article kind of highlights where the resources are at and some of the critical statistics we got to look at first. So let's just drop down all the way here to the bottom. This is the statistic that really gets me and is really eye-opening. So here it says China alone accounts for 85 to 90% of the world's rare earth mine-to-metal refining. What's more, Chinese refineries supply 68% of the world's cobalt, 65% of nickel, and 60% of EV battery-grade lithium, as well as a whopping 75% of all EV batteries are made in China. 75% of all EV batteries. Now, EV batteries are just one part of a broader industry of battery storage. And battery storage might become a very important industry for the utility and production of energy, because whoever creates the first truly mass scale, we're talking about megawatt storage centers that are going to be cheap and viable, is going to change the game. Because the problem we have with energy is not so much the production of energy, it's meeting the production at the time when we have demand. And those two factors, for anybody who's an engineer knows this, is very difficult to pin down. So you're always trying to chase engineering with what we would consider sometimes imperfect data. But energy storage and sequestration changes that and creates a much more predictable models of energy output and energy utilization and usage, right? So now you can produce energy at a certain time and then use it at a certain time later. Right now we have a system that kind of does that, but every single thing that we have in the modern world, including battery storage, is kind of clunky, expensive, and very difficult to manage with huge maintenance costs. And the longer that you use them, the more the costs go up. So it's not exactly a set of perfect solutions. But rare earth elements are critical to the production, manufacturing, and distribution of these technologies that might potentially be game-changing and world-changing. Much in the same way that the first countries to invest during the Industrial Revolution into coal mining, into oil refining, saw huge dividends, particularly Western Europe and the United States. The countries that invest into this might see huge dividends in the future. And what are these countries? Well, if you look at this graph and we look at where in the world are all the rare earths, right? So we look at here and we see the percentages. China has about 37.9% of the rare earths, with Vietnam, India, Brazil, Russia being like notable others. And if these countries learn how to refine, manufacture, and build up this base, they will be strong geopolitical competitors to the United States. Oh, also, by the way, notable shout out Greenland. There's a video where I discuss about Greenland. So maybe this is why the United States wants Greenland, is because it will literally double the amount of access the United States would have to these rare earth elements. Now, if this chart, it maybe for those of you who are watching from the United States and you're looking at this, man, the United States can be really behind China. I will give you one little ray of hope, one ray of sunshine about this. In mining and resource extraction industries, these quantities right here are what you would look at and say are the known quantities, right? This is what proven reserves of these elements. Now, as we all know, and for those of us that remember back in 2008, 2007, when energy prices in the United States skyrocketed, everybody thought the United States was going to be super energy dependent, and then suddenly, bam, we have the fracking revolution, and suddenly we find all these new sources of energy extraction, and next thing you know, America's not as dependent on the rest of the world for energy and manufacturing. America actually becomes energy independent. Same thing could be true here. There could be more reserves found in places that we haven't yet looked at. And when we do, maybe this chart will look completely different in 20, 30 years as these technologies keep developing. But right now, as it looks, China is by far the undisputed leader, especially when it comes to building the technologies and energies of the future, particularly when it comes to batteries, EVs, and others. So what is the main takeaway here? As like I said, with regarding to all of this, right? To all these elements, all these minerals. Well, my main takeaway here is one, we got to understand as a society what these elements and resources are, right? So in order to advance our technologies, we got to have a greater understanding of what the input technologies are, where they're at, and why they're critical, right? And two is like, unlike times past where the United States and our intellectual resources went into oil, petroleum, and other manufacturing, now there might be a huge shift towards mining, extraction, and processing going forward. So there might be potentially a lot of opportunities and a lot of jobs opened up in the world of mining, manufacturing, processing, refining, especially if the United States finds large reserves of these types of rare earth elements. But as said, China has a leg up. And why does it have a leg up? Well, the reason it does is because years past, when the United States started to outsource its production to other countries, most notably China, well, guess what? China started to look at the supply chains all across the world. And by the 90s, it understood that it has to have some sort of hold or control over these supply chains in order to be able to produce goods at a much cheaper rate. It's not like China just got America's technology and cheaper labor and you just said, oh, okay, well, we just got cheaper labor, because eventually that labor, as conditions and societies improve, is going to become more and more expensive. So what do they do? Well, they start integrating these industries all the way up and down the chain. This, I believe, is called vertical integration. And they started making these inputs cheaper and cheaper and cheaper so that their production outputs can be cheaper to the market, to the rest of the world. And that's what they did. So they have a huge stranglehold on the supply chains, refining, and the building of these technologies, which again are going to be critical in the future. So overall, China is eating the United States' lunch when it comes to the elements and the technologies of the future. That being said, the United States and its reliance and need of natural gas, fossil fuels in general, is still going to be able to carry a lot of water going forward for the United States. But there is going to be a future where the United States has to geostrategically start looking more importantly at these resources, because right now the United States is saying we can buy some time by using oil and natural gas and subsidize that to make that a lot cheaper to as an input for production, while China is still building this. At some point, the rubber is going to meet the road, because as there's going to be less and less fossil fuels in the world, other elements and other critical resources are going to become that much more important. And as a result, this table right here that I started off this presentation with is going to become much more critical. And we might have to start learning a lot more of the names of the elements on this table, such as scandium, yttrium. Sounds like some Gen Zer made up that one. Cerium, so on and so forth. Europium, I believe that's actually named after a moon. Or no, that's actually after the continent of Europe. Never mind, it tells you right here what all these are. Anyway, so the gist of this presentation, and long story short, is that right now the United States has a strategic advantage with regards to fossil fuels, but China holds a strategic advantage over the elements of the future and of the technologies, especially since they manufacture a lot of these technologies themselves and then ship it to an external market. And the United States, as people who, like myself, who lives in the United States, we should see more investment into building up the stocks, reserves, and industries within the rare earth category to have a strategical and geopolitical advantage if the United States wants to compete with the world of the future. Otherwise, the United States might become the Ottoman Empire of the 17th century, watching as the rest of the competitors around them develop while they kind of get stuck in the middle, as all these other countries around them are industrializing with newer technologies and better resources and better supply routes that they themselves didn't invest into earlier or didn't find the opportunities for much earlier. So with that being said, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, start opening up those periodic table of elements. Start researching this stuff. It is really interesting. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. I hope it was insightful, interesting to you. Let me know what you think about all this stuff in the comments down below. And as always, I appreciate your time and thank you for stopping by.